Hi, everyone. Very good morning. And those joining us online, greetings of the day. My name is Himanshu Shekhar. I work for the United Nations University Institute for Environment and Human Security in Bonn, Germany. We are very delighted to have you with us, where we are going to all work together. We are going to learn from your experiences, we are going to learn from your aspirations and your expertise on something that has become the talk of the town. How frontier technology, when we talk of frontier technology, we hear about a lot of stuff. Artificial intelligence is one, machine learning is one, and basically it's a big Pandora box that we see from different sides. So, in this particular event, we have a few activities planned. So, we hope you would be supporting us to learn from you as much as we want to share from our side. We are going to present two different tools. One tool is more on the frontier technology and how it helps you advance your climate adaptation. And the second part is more about how the community can engage with these tools in a more proactive way to co create it. But before we do that, and we have a few speakers, and we will be having two breakout sessions for some 40 minutes during these 90 minutes. I have forced two volunteers to provide us a bit of glimpse of how the two key stakeholders perceive artificial intelligence and frontier technology in a very mundane way. So I request Eva Costas and Paula Munoz, who have kindly agreed to become our volunteers, to provide a very quick glimpse of what we think of artificial intelligence when we see it from different hats. So Paula and Eva, you can also use the mic.
Okay, so I was literally asked 5 minutes ago to participate in this task. So, okay, I will do my best. But yeah, as a policymaker, I think it's important to think about AI from a democratic perspective. And when we think about the development of science and technology, it's important to think about these issues from a democratic and inclusive perspective. Because of course we need to understand how this will be inclusive for communities and for politics. So what do you think about it?
See, for me, I'm really struggling to understand how AI can help me because in my community, we do actually real work on the ground, and I don't see how some robot is going to help us deal with solutions that are human centric, especially climate change and the climate crisis that's so big. I've always thought that AI was for technology companies and for rich people. So I really do not understand how AI can plant trees. So
Yeah, I'm also concerned about how the data gathering will be collected, in comparison, how vulnerabilities, communities, or how this data collection will address climate impact. So I think this opportunity needs to address that issue from that perspective. So, from your community, how do you think that will impact in that sense?
I think especially looking at climate change solutions are driven by people. So I don't understand how something like AI that's very much technology heavy can really help with this, unless a human centric approach is taken for these technologies. I really don't see how it can help us. And this is also really concerned. And I see that AI is advancing faster as well. So I'm just curious to see how it can actually help us in our community and do kind of practical work on the ground to solve climate change.
Yes, well, and another concern related to that is it's important to build the bridge between communities, but also with the public and private sector, because also there is a need about finance and money conversation. So how we can address that? That's a really important conversation, especially when we address AI and how this will be advanced, from a policy perspective. So hopefully this will be discussed today.
Thanks a lot,
Thank
both
you.
of you, for this 5 minute of prep work. You have put a lot of expectations on us, and those in the session who are going to contribute. So please give us some support. A big round of applause for both of them. And I hope through this session, we would try to avoid a situation where we are forced to work with something that is becoming extremely pertinent, the frontier technology. How can we keep pace with the advancement that most of us don't necessarily understand the nitty gritty behind? And that's what we are going to untangle in the sessions today. Before we get into the sessions, again, for those who are joining us now, you can scan the code on the door if you want to have a certificate of participation. I would like to now invite Mr. Sanjay Seth, Senior Director, the Energy and Resources Institute, um, India, to provide us a key insight of how this work has come around and provide us some words of welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Himanshu. Very good morning to all of you present here this morning. First of all, let me thank UNU, UNSCAP, our partners NIUA for making this, putting this event together. I am from India, from an organization called TERI, where you see the logo here. It's been 50 years that we've completed, and we work across all segments of the economy, basically trying to do providing innovative solutions to the problems that are, around the climate change and all of those things. So we work on resource efficiency in making sure that we provide a conducive environment to tackle the ills of climate change. Now, we are working on a project which is thanks to UNU, EHS, and NIUA, where all of us, and UNSCAP, all of us have collaborated to see how we can bring in transformative actions, transformative climate actions, using data-driven participatory approach towards how to really go about seeing adaptation coming to the forefront. And that's a project that we are currently doing in the context of India. It's a coastal city of Visakhapatnam where this project is currently on. And the underlying principles on which we are currently working is what gets measured gets managed. It's very simple, that unless and until you don't have data, you're not being able to manage anything. And in terms of getting every stakeholder into the room to participate in that data build up process is where this project is aimed at. So tech for adaptation is, I think, very important, as Himanshu put it in his initial remarks. I think that is the key. Now, the issue that we are tackling in the city, of the coastal city of Visakhapatnam, it is prone to a lot of cyclones. So flooding an issue there, and how we can really build up a resilient infrastructure so that we are able to deal with this demon of flooding. So real-time data is integrated. Using that, we have set up an integrated command and control center as part of the smart city mission program that we have in the government of India. It's a mission on a mission mode, a smart city mission, where 100 smart cities have been taken across the continent and across the subcontinent, and they are putting together how to manage various things. So it's an integrated approach. And obviously, one of the biggest challenges that we are facing is how do we get in the right kind of data and capacities to be understanding, building up those capacities at the lower levels, people who are actually at the ground level, who are tasked with providing that data and collecting the data. How do you build up their capacities? Otherwise, garbage in, garbage out, and that's something which we really need to be cognizant of. So that is where the entire effort is. And I'm sure that during the course of the day, when he has these breakout sessions, probably you will take them through the efforts that has been put in by all the team members who have been listed here, how they have worked together with the stakeholders in putting this together. And obviously, the concepts are urban living labs. There's a real time that what has worked, and then how do you go about scaling it up at the national level so that we are able to find a solution to these problems. So it's a sandbox approach where test beds are used to eventually scale up the projects. So with that, I think I wish you all the best for the deliberations this morning. And I look forward to getting some good inputs from here as well, which I'll probably take back to our country and utilize them during the course of our engagements there. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Seth, for providing us insight of how this feeds into the larger work that 1/6 of humanity, if I may call, in India engages with, and an extensive program of smart cities. And we are going to dive into that. That's one of our breakout groups. So now is time for us to learn the tools, what we are going to present, what we are going to engage with. Again, let me provide you a bit of synopsis of how next 45, not a lot of time. Now, next 75 minutes are going to be. So we have a tool developed by UNSCAP that Mr. Sanjay Srivastav will be giving us a run through very quickly. We have another tool that in collaboration with partners that Mr. Said just talked about, we would be presenting. And then we have two complementary perspectives. We understand that 90 minutes is very limited. We will have a legal perspective on what frontier technologies for adaptation need to have as prerequisites. And we are very happy to have you with us, Fernando, from Queen's Mary University of London. And then we would get a humanitarian perspective from Nini Yu there from IFRC. That's the whole idea. We would start now with a quick run through the tools. So if I may ask Mr. Sanjay Srivastav, who is Chief of the Disaster Risk Reduction at the UN Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific. Mr. Srivastav, would you like to run us through the tool, please?
Thank you, Himanshu. Thank you, colleagues, for giving UNSCAP this opportunity. Let me, before we come to the tool, let me share with you where this tool came from. In, I think, COP26, there was a lot of dialogue and discussion on transformative adaptation, 1.5 degree warming, and then transformative adaptation. So now from enough political momentum created worldwide in many countries. Now the demand from the country is what to do from know-how transformative adaptation to do-how transformative adaptation. So to do how transformative adaptation, you need many science, analytics tool, a tool which could fit for the purpose. So that's the demand number one. Now the demand number two came in 2000, in the 2 years back. UN Secretary General introduced early warning for all. Early warning already there, many countries are champions in early warning system, but then what is the extra mile that UN Secretary General highlighted through early warning for all? So that was the demand number two. If I come to the demand number one with our tool, transformative adaptation. The idea, of course, there are many contexts where it differs, but overall, a transformative adaptation comprises a very precise, effective last mile outreach, early warning for all. This is to save lives, livelihood. So the first and foremost of transformative adaptation is an effective early warning system. Second is most of the country in their NDC, in their national adaptation plan, prioritize food system, water system, agriculture as the highest priority. Then they came to the water, energy, many other sectors. There are policy interventions which cut across the sectors and bring intersectoral synergy. So what this tool does is it brings early warning for all and also brings across the sector the element of the synergy. So once you put all synergistic element together, it becomes transformative adaptation. Your small investment in adaptation will lead to much bigger returns. So that's what transformative adaptation is all about. You will hear some specific example from my colleague while demonstrating the tool. My second point was the demand on early warning for all. There are four pillars which UN Secretary General highlighted eloquently. The one was the knowledge of the risks. Many risk knowledge were not known before. How to bring the element of knowledge, many unknowns in disaster risk knowledge. So how to make them known, especially with 1.5 degree, 2 degrees. So risk knowledge. Second was warning and forecasting, monitoring and forecasting, which many hydromet agencies, WMO have been doing worldwide. Now in the warming and forecasting, 1.5 degree and beyond warming, whether we are precise enough, were we able to reach out to the right person at right time in most vulnerable contexts? So that was number three was communicating the risk. Are we able to do it? We have effective means with all the technology in place. So that's the three. The last one is the response. My colleagues from IFRC is there. So where all four elements of our early warning system exist in a country, institutional and technical capacity, that's the UN Secretary General. So for our tool, what we have done, we have used the best of the analytics, risk analytics, that is modeling, artificial intelligence, particularly the adaptive and regenerative tools, machine learning, and to some extent, capture the missing links, which could enable transformative adaptation, which can turn early warning for all a reality. So this is all about our tool. Himanshu, thank you very much. My colleagues will come with very specific examples.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Srivastava, for giving us a glimpse of what the risk and resilience portal from UNSCAP can provide. And we have with us Mr. Daisuke Mariuchi, who will be taking us on the journey through the tool. So we would be, so before we go into the breakout, so the idea again would be that we do two breakouts simultaneously, and then after 20 minutes, we will swap. So we will have the opportunity to engage with both the tools. Before we do that, it falls on me to, if I find to bring you to the second tool. And this particular one is more about not necessarily the tool itself, which we would go into the detail in the breakout, but how communities, when we think of people that Ava was trying to portray, thanks again for that. When someone walking on the street thinks about this and whether is aware or not is impacted, how do they engage? How can we bring them together to use this? So, oops, I guess I pressed the wrong button. Would you mind putting up the slides, please? Yeah, I hope now, right. So before I just had some time last night to engage in how we perceive artificial intelligence. And there is no easier way to do that than to ask, for example, Copilot in Microsoft to provide us some graphics. And there were small prompts. So I just asked how people perceive AI to be. It's a bit scary at the same time, super enigmatic. And I think maybe not this way, but in certain way of complexity and what it portrays. That's how a lot of these frontier technologies appear to be, if you are not very familiar. Then the second one was I gave the prompt on how artificial intelligence could be leveraged to address climate change. So now the onus was on the machine itself, and then it came up with something which is more closer to home for those who work on frontier technology. So here you would see on renewable energy optimization, on productive analytics, smart agriculture, agrivoltaics, and so on. So this was much closer. And then I asked again, and that's the fun part. The more we train the system, the better it gets. And this time I did not ask how it to be, simply how people perceive artificial intelligence, and got slightly closer. So of course there was a lot of journey covered between the first picture and the third picture. And that was in span of half an hour of, just engaging with the tool. And that's what I think is the key. How do you engage? So now, I very quickly, my apologies for one of the picture that is not loading properly. What we started with, so this is based on the transformative climate action for participatory data-driven decision-making platform. That's quite a mouthful. It's simply how do you engage with community, not simply as a data provider, but a solution creator. And can we have two layers of risk understanding? One which comes more from longitudinal static data, and second that is more dynamic, but comes from people. It's very amazing to think people can provide this information, but what if the city I come from, India, is a very small town in the Indian sense, Bhagalpur, but has a population of 700,000. How do you engage if 10% of them provide you feedback? And what do you do when you are in a mega city like Cairo, where you have 30 million people, and if 10% of them provide you feedback, how do you analyze it? So these things we have tried to put together. What you see in the center is how a lot of smart cities are approaching now these data-driven governance or frontier technology-based, a lot of sensor-based information collecting mechanism that provide you a quick understanding as well of what this information is about. But my favorite photo is one on the left bottom from my side. And we work with the communities, we work with them. How do they make sense of this tool? Where are the opportunities to engage? And how do you get this dynamic layer of risk understanding? With this, I will go more into this in the breakout. May I request our IT support to play the video? The video was supposed to be embedded. Unfortunately, there is a bit of an issue, so I think we would have to go to the browser. So there is this 2-minute small video would just show us how we have been able to work with community on this. So please bear with us for a second. It's a link for YouTube. In the meanwhile, so what we are going to do afterwards, let me already give you a hint. We are going to take a small pause for 5 to 7 minutes, and we will request you to look around, find someone whom you don't know. Because we understand you are in this room because you bring a lot of experience and expertise and aspirations. So we would try to make it sort of a marketplace in terms of understanding what we all bring together. And then we would use those 5-7 minutes to have a quick exchange, and then we go for breakout. Are we ready with the video now? My apologies, the video seems to have some issue. I would be showing the video hopefully in the breakout session. So with this, now we are going, so we have two complementary voices in the room, and we are very happy to have, for example, with us, Professor Fernando Barrio, who is a reader in sustainable business and law at Queen's Mary University of London. So Fernando, you would be providing first enabler, and after the breakout, we would be coming to Ms. Nini Ikala Niman from IFRC, and she would be providing more the humanitarian community perspective in terms of enabler. So Fernando, if you would like to quickly run us through the legal precursor of how do we engage with frontier technology for adaptation. Can we have the second presentation now, please? The second presentation.
This is the white USB. Okay. I prefer this because I move around. Let's have a very quick and brief overlook of what are the key and policy legal enablers for AI for climate action, taking into account that one of the fundamental issues for dealing with AI in communities, as Himanshu was mentioning, is the buy-in of the different communities and the different stakeholders. And there is a strong argument that the regulatory framework plays an important role of that. We sometimes tend to focus too much in the technology, and we forget that one of the main enablers is both the regulation and the policy. So when we are talking about the regulatory framework, we need to understand what are the fundamental issues that AI brings into the picture when we start using this technology, and how can we ensure that AI benefits everyone and respecting different groups' rights. For that, understanding ethics is fundamental as AI is reshaping the world on a daily basis. So when we talk about AI ethics, and you probably have heard a lot about it these days, what are we talking about? Bias and fairness. Bias is inherent into AI. There is no way around that. It doesn't matter, oh, we are going to make new algorithms that are unbiased. It is simply not possible. A very simple example, if you are in 1990s and you ask for an AI system that in basic terms looks for the probabilistic output of based in past experiences, what the judge will look in UK will look 60 years old, graduated from Oxford and Cambridge, and white. And that is not because it was designed like that. It's because it feeds from what happened. And it just happened that at that time, 95% of judges were like that. And therefore, there is an inherent bias not only in the way that algorithms are designed, but also in historical data. Then you add a new bias that has to do with inequality. There are more data in certain places that are normally wealthier and with developed countries. Therefore, it's a self-feeding loop in we have more AI based in what we already know a lot. And that is one issue that we need to take into account when we deal with AI for climate action too, because the bias and the lack of fairness may impact what we are doing. Another issue is the issue of fairness, of transparency and explainability. Most of us, and if you ask those designing the algorithm, they also don't know what has happened inside the algorithm. The algorithm starts to look for probabilities and does it in a way that those that design it sometimes cannot explain, the famous black box effect of AI. And therefore, when you are making a policy decision and you are trying to convince a community to use an AI system, the community may have rightfully the opinion that, okay, why this is happening in this way, and you might not be able to explain it unless there is a very strong framework that forces transparency and explainability. Then you have the issues of personal rights. You heard in the very brief interventions before, oh, we are processing a lot of data. There is a misconception that there are some sort of data that might not include privacy issues of data protection. Some of us, I'm finishing finally a book about the use of AI in agriculture. And one of the bias that you see when you analyze the topic is people say, oh, if a drone is taking how many cows are in a field, there is no personal data here. Well, that logic per se has a problem. The drone, if it's fed into an AI system, the AI system, for example, will know the income of the owner of that place because the AI also have access to the prices, to the fluctuation of sales and buying, and a lot of things. Without even mentioning the fact that when it's taking these photos of cattle and then analyzing, there are people on the ground. So therefore, privacy needs to be embedded in the system. The good news is possible. And probably what we care more about when we talk about AI for climate action, taking into account that regardless of what sometimes you see what happened in Valencia in Spain a couple of weeks ago, most of the heavy lifting of the climate change is done in developing countries that receive the impact without having caused them, is the issues of inclusion and inequality. Most of AI is produced in certain countries with certain mindset, and therefore when they are applied, there is a need to adapt to the local characteristic, and that is not always done. Therefore, when we think about enabling AI for climate action, we think about a framework that first protects individual rights, ensures accountability, fosters trust of the community, and therefore overall produce an ethical AI development. This is needed for this tool that we are going to analyze in this hour that we are left, so those tools have a buy-in from the community and serve the purpose for which they were designed. Now, and very quickly, and I know I'm already stretching my 2 minutes, how do we go from this ethics to politics and policy, and from policy to regulation? First, AI give us also other option, which is what we call real-time regulation. A regulation in which you use AI to develop regulation, which based in past experiences allow you to tailor what you need in the time that you need it. Then something that many countries don't like very much, but there is a need of some sort of global AI regulatory body, or at least cooperation. And finally, something that we've been talking about since COP26 in Glasgow in relation to climate change adaptation in general, it is time to focus on implementation and not only on words. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Fernando. I know providing a legal backup to something so complex, coming from something even more complex, the legal setting in 2 minutes, was a very arduous task. And thanks a lot for taking this along on that. Let's give one more try to the video, and I hope it works this time. So Fernando would have to stop sharing the screen. Yeah. Okay, now it should work. And I think I always find it almost ironical every time we have a workshop or some session on frontier technology, there would be some technology glitch. And that's a very good reminder that hybrid approaches work. So very quickly, 2 minutes, and then that should be it. There is sound which should come in a second. Bad idea. I'm sorry for the technical glitch. Anyway, I think I would have to run you. We don't have this mic anymore on. There is I did include the sound. But that's okay. I think we can leave this video for now. We wanted to show you how community workshops were taking place. So sorry for the technical glitch. Now, what we would be doing is, Mariko, now I'm going to put you also a bit on the spot. So we are going to divide the room into two halves. On this side, we would have the first tool that would be from UNSCAP, the risk and resilience portal that they have created. So we would. Okay, I think I might have done something to the audio that goes beyond the capacity for now. While we figure that out. So on this side, we would do the first session for 20 minutes on understanding the risk and resilience portal of UNSCAP. On the other side, we would do the second tool that the video was supposed to show you a bit. And how do you engage community? After 20 minutes, we will swap the groups. So you would have the opportunity to go through both the tools. While we set up the room for that, we request you to just look around, talk to your neighbor. If you don't know, if you know and still want to talk, by all means. And what brings you to this particular forum? What's the experience from your side? And most importantly, what are your aspirations? Because these are the aspirations we are going to start the breakout with. What the frontier technologies are, where lies the interest for you? In the meanwhile, I think, Mariko, you would need to set up your computer as well. And for those of us on this side, we start from here. Because we need your attention for a minute. We hope we have intrigued you enough that you may like to sacrifice 10 minutes of your lunch time and continue this afterwards. We would have to leave in 10 minutes. And most importantly, all this only goes so far without taking into consideration people. And Nimi, we understand you also have to leave. We are very, very thankful for you to provide time to us. You have been listening to these conversations. I wanted to understand from your perspective, are we talking in our bubbles? Do you really see these things making some difference? With you, we have Nimi from IFRC, please.
Thanks so much, everyone. And indeed, I wanted to give a few remarks. So I'm from the IFRC, so we represent the 191 Red Cross national societies in the world, including Jamaica Red Cross is here with us in the event today. And for us, it's really about turning data into action. And I'm going to, in particular, talk a bit about our involvement in the Early Warnings for All initiative that Sanjay was mentioning and our use of early warning systems. So we are traditionally a disaster management organization. So weather forecasts are very important to us. However, since we're dealing with a climate crisis, we are increasingly seeing that we need to understand not just weather, but seasonal and also climate projections. And how does that change the work we do at community level? And that is our full focus, is the 190,000 local branches we have. How do we turn weather climate information into a way that it's understood and turned into action? That's the basis of our work. So, for example, in Early Warnings for All, we collaborate with WMO, who puts out the hardware. UNDRR does the risk knowledge. ITU is helping with communications. We are about how do you prepare for these extreme events we're talking about, and how do we act on those? So if we're looking at information, critical points are how do communities receive the information? So these are fantastic data sets on climate here. It was really interesting seeing the work of UNU as well. So if we're looking at weather data, does that information we're talking about here get to community level? If it gets to community level, and here our colleague from Queen Mary, Fernando, was mentioning, is it trusted? If we're saying that, okay, there's going to be a hurricane in 2 days, or the drought is going to get more severe, or a flood is going to hit you in Valencia, if in Valencia the population had known in advance, would they have trusted that information? So receive, trust. Do you understand the information? Does that make sense to you? If I look at some of this data now at community level, I guess this probably doesn't make a lot of sense, right? Seeing a map like this, what does this actually mean? What does it mean in local languages? How is it received and understood? And then how do you act? And that is the critical part. The information does not lead to action. So it's nice to know there's a flood or a heat wave coming. So what? If you don't have the means to act, you don't have the resources, you don't have the networks to act, you're going to stay there. That is why a country like Spain is hit to that degree. Obviously, these are cases we're more used in the Pacific or the Caribbean, but if you don't get the information, you're not prepared, you're not going to save your life. And that's really a focus of our work, is on anticipatory action, where we see that $1 invested in action before a hazard can save us $7. We can cut damages by 30%. And so we are very keen on these models. We're very keen on AI, for example, models like Pangu Weather, which can enable the quick processing of data. And it's worked in particularly well with cyclones, using historical data, try to map where will these cyclones hit. So these kind of models and the ability to have this data and have it generated fast, which AI does for us, is really critical. But then turning into that action means a few things. It means that in advance, if we know that this is an area likely to be more prone to floods or heat waves, as you were discussing, how are different parts of the community affected? How are different people within the community affected? What are the evacuation routes in the case of a flood? In case of a heat wave, where are the cool spaces? Is it a school? Is it a hospital? Who has access to go there? If a flood is going to hit us, let's use Valencia as an example. Where do we need food? Where do we need water? Where do we have emergency shelter? That needs to be in place before, not once it comes. It's way too late once you get this data to then do something about it. In advance, you need to look into evacuation routes, the food provisioning, and finance. That's a big part. If we have means of have pre-positioning of finance, so that when we know, when we're within a 24-hour window, but okay, now we're at a red degree of which hazards we're looking at here, floods, for example, that's when you act. So you have these triggers, which data can help us generate, but we need to prepare for those triggers. So that's just, I think this is really exciting. It's really good to see that these are coming out, but just to encourage, and as in the example that we're discussing from the smart cities in India, what's both the long and short-term planning for those, and how do we prepare in advance so that once we know and we understand and we trust the data, how can we act? So that would be the message I would like to add to this event today. And thank you very much. I learned a lot, and it was really great to hear from you all.
Thanks a lot again. So this was Nini Ikala Nieman. She is the lead of climate and resilience at IFRC. I should have introduced earlier, but thanks a lot for your time, and thanks to all of you. We have few minutes left, and I know you have too many questions left. So now we would like to take this opportunity to hear from each other. Are there certain uses that you additionally would like to have here, do you have still clarification questions for us? And most importantly, are there things that you are working on? Do you think would be very interesting for those in the room to know about? It's an open floor, it's an open mic. So please feel free. Anyone who would like to share something, anyone who would like to point something. And I know, Fernando, from your side, you had your own insights of the two sessions. So we wanted to get a very quick reflection from the legal side. Do you see we are like what we get from IFRC? Are we talking in our bubbles? And do you see this being legally plausible in many of the contexts that we work in? So while we wait for questions from the floor to come in, Fernando, can we have a quick word from your side?
Yes. Just a couple of reflections. I think that in principle, the tools are legally viable. The only issue that I think that there are some clarifications needed, probably they are already taken into account. We were talking about using global data and then the possibility of using these tools in different regions. Of course, I will always try to avoid the issue of data ownership and who actually can do that. There was some mention about transforming this into products, and we are talking about closing data that is already open. So those are issues which I normally try to avoid, which is intellectual property one. But then some of the issues that you were mentioning in the tool include people's data that is collected. And one of the issues in India, of course, we know that since about 15 years ago, we have an appropriate data protection regulation that takes account into that, but it's necessary to get the consent of the people. And fundamental, and this goes beyond the legal, this will be more like a meta legal. As was just mentioned, the issue of trust, it is important to get the different stakeholders' participation so they understand what is going on and there is a proper buy-in, because if not, all this will be just something very top-down that at the end of the day will die as soon as the money that is behind it dies.
Indeed.
So this is one of the issues that is not exactly regulatory, but the regulatory system should enable the participation of the different stakeholders.
Yeah.
So for this to be sustainable, not only environmentally sustainable, but financially and in the future.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. I mean, the whole question about data protection and trust. I like, for example, when I get reminders about the birthdays. I don't like when I am shown about a phone that I was just talking about. So where does the boundary come in? Where does the personal space ceases to exist, and where the community information comes in? So thanks a lot for sharing that. You wanted to add a quick word? Then we take one or two things from the floor because we have to break for lunch.
Just a very quick one. We were talking about global data, and I understand from the work of my colleagues in the university, which is quite advanced in these issues, that we are talking particularly in the first tool, the first from my side, where I was before, that we are using global data that in theory covers the whole world equally. And I think that another important thing, particularly from the developing countries' point of view, that we make sure that we get raw data from the ground and we expand the data available on those places, because today most of the data is concentrated in heavily populated areas and in developed countries, and therefore there is a need of equality which AI can provide and it should be done, I think, from regulatory frameworks.
Yeah, indeed, providing voices to all, no matter where you live. I hope that's where technology does provide us some hope. Hopefully, in a positive tone. If we have any comment, reflection from yes. And then last word I would come to Sanjay and Daisuke. I know from your side you are also continuously improving the information portal itself. And what Nini left us with, this is information. How do we go from here to action? So I wanted to get your feedback as well, if there has been additional information that you gathered today. But we come to you first, your name and affiliation.
Yes. I am Leticia Addison. I'm from the University of the West Indies, and I work in planning, but I also do a lot of work in statistical modeling and data science, and more recently looking into climate science and modeling. And I would just like to tell you that this session I feel has been very effective for my purposes. So I would like to thank you all very much for that. The interaction has been most helpful because I am also an AI Innovation Challenge winner. And I've been recently creating a platform. Many years ago, I created a simple idea of a flood prediction platform, and now we're trying to advance it into more of an AI-based platform for the Caribbean. And some of the insights that you all showed with the platform that you have for the Pacific there has been very innovative and meaningful in seeing how you pull the data and also understanding, just to share with you all that in the Caribbean, we have a problem with sparsity of data. So some of the data that I saw there was so granular and so interesting to see that some of the data that we need to start collecting now. So I'm very happy to see the conversation go from not only just a platform that could sit on our website and people could use, but also how you mentioned and all of the conversations mentioned more of the community aspect, because this really affects the persons in the communities and they need to understand how this will impact them and how this will help and educate them. So I'd really, really like to thank you all for the entire session. It has been most meaningful.
Thank you so much. You really hit the nail in sense of what the capacity building hub is about. It's about us coming together, sharing ideas, and most importantly, sharing our emails to take the conversation further. That reminds me that there should be a sheet going around for you to pass on your email addresses, and we would love to share further information. Last word, first from Daiseku, from you. I mean, from there or podium as you like, how you saw the interaction and demand and aspirations coming today.
Yeah, thank you so much for the introduction. So on the remark made by our colleague from Caribbean, I think issue you mentioned was the sparsity of data, and especially on the flat modeling, I think it makes a lot of sense to I think the gauge is really the issue in Asia Pacific as well. So for that reason, we've been started to work with the Google. They have a flood hub platform, which is the 5-day to 7-day forecasting of flood. And because they use the AI models, they can infer from like data rich locations to data scarce locations. So taking data from the gauge basins and locations to ungauged locations. So those platform with our the collaboration with us, I think it will solve a lot of engaged the basins and the countries and regions issues. So this is something that we can discuss if you're interested. And I think one takeaway is that it's actually like an information asymmetry problem that I realized. So we've been working very hard in Asia Pacific, and we have all those photos available in Asia Pacific, but didn't know that we have so many demands from Africa, from Caribbean, from different parts of the world, and getting the question of, is this really available in the region as well? So unfortunately, we have the mandate to really work in Asia Pacific. But I mean, the kind of things that we're doing, I mean, we're using the data which is available on the internet. So I mean, in theory, that's possible. But I think it's really nice that we get sort of this kind of feedback and requests from different parts of the world. And I feel like there's much more room for collaboration just based on today's discussions and training as well. So that's it from my side.
Thank you so much. I hope this is a note also for us at the UN University. That's sort of the mandate we have, to bring the science from different parts of the world together in the UN system. Also for colleagues from Secretariat, there is this whole Tech CTCN network that tries to bring the latest science from across the world for policy advancing. So yeah, thanks a lot for all your inputs, your suggestions. We would love to keep in touch with you, and we wish you a very productive rest of the day and some lunch break as well. Thank you.